Every time your thumb drags the feed down to refresh, it is the exact same motion as pulling a slot machine lever. Except the bet here is your attention. And here is the strange part. The more boring that feed gets, the harder it becomes to close the app. Zero logic. But there is a reason, and it surfaces a little later. Picture a guy named Dan. He grabs his phone to check one message. Just one. 40 minutes later, he knows what a stranger's apartment in Lisbon looks like, why a bank collapsed back in 2008, and how long an axolotl lives. The message? Still unopened. Sound familiar? If it does, this is not about willpower. It is about a single molecule. Its name is dopamine. And the first thing worth knowing is this. Dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure, it is the molecule of the hunt. Picture a hunting dog. It does not lose its mind over the bowl of food. It loses it over the scent of prey, over the anticipation itself. Dopamine is about the scent, never the bowl. In the brain, it runs in a few quick steps. You see a notification icon, and what is inside is still unknown. Not knowing breeds anticipation, and dopamine spikes. You open it, and most of the time, it is nothing. Barely any reward at all. But dopamine already did its job. It pushed your hand toward the screen. Want to know the catch? People think they scroll because they enjoy it. In truth, they scroll because the brain expects to enjoy it any second now. The next clip, the next post, the reward always sits one swipe ahead, which is exactly why it can never be caught. That same Dan, at night, swears it will be 10 minutes and then sleep. He opens the feed, but the brain is not in rest mode anymore. It is on the hunt, and it lets go only when it burns itself out, usually somewhere past midnight. And the next morning, it does not even wait for him to wake up properly. The alarm goes off, eyes barely open, and before a single conscious thought forms, the hand has already found the phone in the dark. Dan does not decide to check it. The reaching happens first. The deciding never arrives at all. A habit you choose is a habit. A habit that moves your hand before you are awake is something else entirely. By the way, that slot machine comparison? Not just a clever line. Social apps genuinely lifted one very specific trick from casinos. What it is called comes a little later. And once seen, it really cannot be unseen. Rewind 100,000 years. Same brain, same wiring. Back then, new meant ripe berries behind that bush, or a predator hiding in the grass. Searching was a matter of staying alive. Today, that same ancient engine slams into a glowing rectangle and assumes a berry is hiding behind every swipe. What it finds instead is an ad for socks. There is a part of the brain scientists call the seeking system. In plain terms, it is the motor that pushes you to explore, to search, to reach toward the new. A genuinely useful thing. Thanks to it, ancestors found food instead of starving in a cave. The trouble is, the feed is infinite, and that motor has never heard the word enough. Anything used to come with a natural edge. A book ended, a newspaper got finished, a show wrapped up and the screen went dark. The feed has no bottom, ever. It is the first bottomless well in human history, and you lean over it 100 times a day. And here is where almost everyone trips up. They blame themselves. Just weak willpower, you tell yourself. One day you will get it together and quit for good. Here is the truth though. On the other side of that screen sit hundreds of engineers with salaries most people would never believe. And their entire job is to make sure you do not quit. This was never a fair fight. Willpower against billion-dollar budgets. And you can probably guess who wins. It is not that any of them are villains. Their product simply earns money from your time. The longer you stay inside the feed, the more ads have rolled past your eyes. Your attention is the product being sold. And you thought the app was free. Think about the small things. The little dot that appears, red and urgent, demanding to be cleared. The way a post takes a beat to load, so the wait itself builds a tiny ache of anticipation. The pull to refresh that hands you a fresh batch only after you tug. None of that is sloppy design. Every one of those touches was tested, measured, and kept because it makes a thumb stay a few seconds longer. If you have ever lost a whole evening this way, hold that thought. There is a number worth dropping in the comments later, once the full loop is on the table. Not yet though. It gets stranger from here. Remember that riddle from the very start? The more boring the feed, the harder it is to leave. Here is the answer. When the content is good, the brain collects its reward and settles down for a moment. When the feed is mediocre, no reward lands, the anticipation never switches off, and the thumb keeps reaching on its own. Surely the next one will be worth it. Surely. Boredom does not set you free. It eggs you on. To actually feel this, try a small test. Next time, right before you unlock the phone, freeze for half a second and ask yourself one thing. What is the feeling right now? Almost always, it is not a craving for something funny. It is boredom, or anxiety, or a hollow spot that wants plugging with anything at all. The phone is not the goal. The phone is the plug. And that is the uncomfortable discovery. The phone does not deliver joy. It mutes discomfort. Those two things are not even close to the same. Inside that half second hides something important. The single spot where the whole loop can still be cut. But that one waits for the very end. A heavier test, still completely safe. Put the phone face down and simply watch what happens after a minute. Most likely the hand drifts toward it on its own, for no reason at all. Not because a message arrived, because the brain felt a pause in the stream and grew restless, missing its dopamine. Caught yourself mid-reach? The loop just revealed itself to you, live and in person. The funny part is that you can run this test right now, understand it completely, and 5 minutes later, the hand will still find the phone. Knowing about the loop does not switch the loop off. It only buys you the chance to notice it in time. And now the genuinely unpleasant part. When you finally set the phone down, dopamine does not glide back to zero. It sinks below. Scientists call this the dopamine trough. Translated into plain language, the brighter the spike, the deeper the dip that follows. That is why after an hour in the feed, you feel not rested, but strangely hollowed out. The brain is quietly paying off a debt. And the brain, sitting in that trough, knows exactly one way to climb out fast. Reach for the phone again, which spikes dopamine, which deepens the next trough, which calls for the next reach. That is the loop drawing itself. Not a metaphor, a circle the brain runs because each dip begs for the next hit. Know that feeling when nothing bad has actually happened, yet the mood has somehow sagged? Often that is not life letting you down. It is just the come down after a dopamine ride. There is a tidy myth floating around that the fix is simple. Just delete the apps and the problem vanishes, clean and satisfying. The catch is that the loop does not live inside the app. It lives in wiring that was there long before any app existed. Delete one and the thumb simply hunts down another. The well relocates, it does not close. So what was that one specific thing the apps borrowed from casinos? Here it finally is. The unpredictable reward. A payoff you cannot possibly guess ahead of time. At a slot machine, you never know whether a jackpot lands or whether you get nothing. And it is precisely that not knowing that makes a hand yak the lever again and again. The feed runs on the identical principle. Sometimes there's a brilliant meme or a piece of news that genuinely matters. Far more often, it is junk. But the brain holds on to those rare jackpots, and for the chance of one, it will sift through a mountain of nothing. And it is not only the feed. Post something yourself, and the same machine starts up inside your own head. The likes do not arrive all at once. They trickle in, 1 here, 3 there, unevenly, unpredictably. So the phone gets checked again and again, not for the count, but for the not knowing. The same lever, only now you built the slot machine and walked in as the player. Picture a machine that always pays out the same fixed amount. Boring enough to make you yawn. Nobody would touch it. The entire magic lives in the maybe this time. The feed sells that maybe to you around the clock, with no closing hours. That gesture, the one where you drag the feed down to refresh, was not dreamed up by accident. It is a lever, pure and simple. So now, back to that half second before the screen lights up. That is exactly where the loop tears. Not through willpower, but through one honest question aimed at yourself. Are you reaching for the phone because you want something specific? Or only to avoid feeling that hollow spot? Answer that honestly, and the hand often lowers all on its own. The entire loop runs on autopilot, and an honest question is the light that makes the autopilot quietly stall. Because dopamine was never the molecule of got it. It is the molecule of almost. And the phone resting in your palm is a machine that whispers, any second now, exactly as many times as you are willing to keep listening. So, how many times did you unlock that screen while this video was playing? Drop the honest number in the comments and subscribe if you want to take apart the next trap your own brain runs on you.